So, with the AM rigs here, you have a lot of very good control over a lot of different things. Like we were showing before, you can scale the face in all sorts of cool ways. You can manipulate the face in all cool ways. But the other thing you can do is you can squash and stretch. So for example, here at the top of the head, there's this awesome squash controller that allows you to manipulate the top of the head. You've got one for the bottom right there. These are wonderful controllers. I love these controllers. They really help to plus your posing in a lot of cool ways. Now, the problem is you might be working on a rig that doesn't have those controls. Or you might be working in a setup where you're trying to squash and stretch, for example, the top of the head here, and maybe you added a hat to the character, and the hat is not rigged into the rest of the character, so it won't squash and stretch. Or you want to apply it to the hand. You want to add some squash and stretch like that, but on the hand control, but there's none on the hand, or the foot, or maybe in the body. You want to take that flexibility of this control and kind of work it elsewhere. So, in order to do this, what we need to do is basically just find a way to deform the character in a creative and helpful way that allows us to actually work with what we want. Now, the easiest way to do that is with a lattice deformer. We've talked about lattice deformers before, but I want to cover it again here, just because they are very important tools that not many people tend to use, or if they do use, they tend to use, I don't want to say incorrectly, but they don't use the lattice deformers to their maximum potential. I guess I could put it that way. Lattice deformers, at first glance, are very tricky. They don't seem super helpful, kind of, at times. And they can seem very limiting in a lot of ways. So I want to show how you can get around all of those and make them very, very useful. So let's use a lattice deformer. Now we're gonna do this on the hand first, and then we'll do one on the head, just to kind of show how we can work with both. So, and Spencer, hello! So the first thing we'll need to do is we need to be able to select the body. With the AM rigs, all you need to do is go in here, turn on body selectable. If you have another rig, just find the way to select the body either in the outliner or whatever works easiest. So I'm going to select the hand here, and I'm going to select what part of the hand I want to be editable. I'm just going to select the vertices, and let's go all the way up the wrist here, just a little bit. Right around there, that should be fine. So I want to take all of these vertices, and I want them to be manipulated by a lattice deformer. With all of these selected, I'm going to go to my animation menu set, deform, and let's go to lattice. Now if you open up the options, there's a lot of different things to look at here. A few of these can be very helpful, but most people never kind of look at these. So the main thing, if you just create them straight away, let's do that first, is that you now get your lattice. Great. So we just create the lattice, done. And this is nice because we can take our lattice points. So I just right clicked and go to lattice points, and we can now manipulate this and start to basically sculpt and adjust our posing quite a bit. So you can see that definitely changes that hand shape there. If I want to create like a smear frame or just like make the hand bigger, I could take these and scale them down, maybe scale these up a little bit. You can see you can really shape this whole selection. You could use it to kind of move it up and down like so. With the fingers is kind of not the most appealing thing because you've got fingers that are all moving separate, but you can see how this kind of works in a similar way to the squash and stretch up here. If we were to take a little bit more time, we can really flesh that out. But with this, we run into two problems right off the bat. The first problem is that if we now move the hand, we get this, which is not ideal. Suddenly, all of this beautiful posing goes right out the window, and we get horrors that just look terrible. And you'll see that your character can actually just move right out of the lattice, move back in, and then back out. So that's not very helpful. The next thing is, oh, I need to reset this hand so I can remake this lattice, because, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the shape I made here. Let's reset it. Select lattice points. How do you reset this? Maybe I could change the CVs here. Ah, yeah, there's some numbers. Let's zero these out. That's not where it was. This just resets it to the center of the lattice. That's not good. So we can't move the hand. So that means any small animation adjustment later on is going to be useless. And we can't even reset the points to bring the hand lattice back in place. Yeah, you go close by and go eat ice cream, exactly. Or you would have to delete the lattice and then remake it all, which sucks. And it makes it hard to animate lattices, because if you can't zero them out, how can you work with them in any meaningful way as animators? So, let's kind of address those main issues. And we'll do that without changing any settings within the lattice options. So, let's take the hand again. We've got that. Okay. Go to Deform, Lattice. So, first issue we need to do. How can we get this lattice to follow the hand so that it's actually going to work when we're animating things? Well, actually, that's very simple. Just take the two lattice items here. This is the lattice and then the base. These are the two things that actually create the lattice deformer. Take both of those, group them together. I could call this. Always name your things. I don't do this on stream all the time because it takes time, and I don't like having to force you guys to listen to me typing. Type. Because my keyboard is a mechanical keyboard right behind the microphone. I am assuming it's very loud as soon as I type. But rename your stuff. It's very important. So this is the hand lattice. I've grouped them together, and now I can take that group and I'm going to constrain it to, in this case, the hand controller. So take the hand controller, select the group, constrain parent. Now it follows. Done. So with this, I can even start deforming things. So let's do that to the fingers. And it follows along. There we go. That's it. So now, with that, we can actually have this follow the hand, and we're not having to just kind of hope that we get in that right place the first time, and then, oh, we adjusted something, redo all our lattices throughout the whole shot. That sucks. Now, what about animating this? What if I want to be able to animate this kind of, all of these lattice points, the same way that I would animate a control like this, for example, where I could just kind of squash and stretch and move it around and do everything I want, and then actually key it and reset it? Well, for that, we can turn to another deformer within Maya that most people don't really know about and don't ever really use, aside from riggers and modelers. It's a deformer that gets used a lot in those fields. As animators, we don't get to use it very often. That is a cluster deformer. Now, a cluster deformer is basically a deformer that will allow you to select multiple objects or multiple vertices, edges, basically anything. So for example, let's take a sphere here. We're just going to use this as a demo. I could take a selection of vertices. Let's say I always want to manipulate these vertices together, doing this. I can select those, go to Deform, Cluster, and that creates this little cluster node right there. This cluster handle. If I select this, it is essentially like selecting all those vertices. That's really what it's doing. And now we get this beautiful song. Oh, I love this song. So, how does that work with our lattices? Hey, Sir Wade, how's it going? Cluster deformer question. Ooh, have you found a way to use the cluster deformer to affect geo with a soft selection behavior? Yes, I have. I actually was testing it this morning as part of a demo, which I wasn't going to do, but now that you've mentioned it, I might as well. So let me finish this and then we can go into that a little bit, because that is a problem with clusters, is that they are very hard most of the time in terms of their selection. It's always on, off, no softness. So if you're trying to affect the face and do something like this, it's like taking one vertex and moving it. It's not appealing. But let's go into here. Let's say I want to move these lattice points together. Now the big thing I want to do is figure out what combination of lattice points do I want to move together. Do I want to move them all individually? In which case I would just add a cluster for each individual one. Or do I know that I'm just going to be taking this, I'm just going to take this end selection and just using it as a squash and stretch. That's about it. Let's say we want to do that. Take all of these, deform, cluster, and there we go. Now, if I wanted to, I could keep going through. So let's take all of these. I'm just going to hit G to redo the last command. Take all of these, redo the last command, and I'm not going to do the last ones. Usually I'm not a fan of moving the last bits of a lattice deformer, the ones that attach to the rest of the body, because then you start to get that. So as long as I just move these ones, I'm always going to have a smooth transition into the original. So we have all our cluster handles. Now we could actually turn the visibility off on our lattice deformer there, and now we've got controls that we can use to shape the hand and basically just do whatever we want. And unlike lattice points, they can be keyed and reset. So now I can easily go, you know what, I'm not a fan of this pose. Boop, 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 done. Okay, let's repose it. Take cluster, boop, move that, and let's see if I can actually select it through all the controls here. Move that. You can rotate it. So you can do all of this very easily. So now I can add some rotation here. There we go. So we've just pushed that pose, and this is not appealing in the least, but very quickly. So let's undo this and show another benefit of lattice deformers. Oh, are they still connected? Do I still have all my redos? Yes, I did. I didn't touch anything. Phew. Okay, so let's do this and move it. And they all follow. Now, this is the one problem with clusters, is that they stay behind. There is a way to connect them, but it's kind of a pain. So I usually just kind of leave them at the default. But, oh, the finger controls? Yeah, those should still all function. Wait. So I can still pose things out. It does misalign the controls. Like, when you're doing something like that, that's kind of a given, because you're stretching the geometry so far off of its intended purpose. Now you will notice this. As I move the fingers, they do this. This is because they are leaving the lattice deformer. So you have to kind of make sure certain parts, like you're not going to repose the entire thing at the end. This is to push the final polish on it, not to do right at the beginning and then push things further. You can go a little bit. How often do I use this? It depends on the shot. If I'm doing a very subtle shot, pretty much never, because it just kind of, it's a lot of extra stuff for no reason. For subtlety, if I'm doing a cartoony shot, I might use this for the entire shot. It depends on what I need. So it's a very dependent on the scenario. Or for example, if I need the hand to, like, maybe he's hammering something and he slams the hammer on his hand and I want this kind of extreme squash effect, I might do something with the lattice. That way I can really stretch that hand and get that intense impact in there. Just for one frame even. Now, the other thing with lattice deformers, and this is what makes them very powerful, is that they are not object specific. What that means is, let's say I want to deform the head. So we'll just take that. I'm not going to worry too much about making a clean selection at the bottom there. So I want to deform the head. Well, if I added a lattice to this right now, basically what we're going to end up with is the head pulling away from everything else, which is not the greatest thing. So, let's see. What if you use the cluster deformers on a character that is moving across the scene? You would kind of... There is a way to get them to follow, but for most scenes, I just kind of leave them at their center, or wherever I created them, and just animate them back there. I find it just kind of more of a hassle to try and get them to follow along without getting double transformations and things. Which you could do, but it basically, all you need to do is group the cluster and then constrain them. The same way we did the lattice. You would group them together and then constrain them to the wrist. That would get them to follow. Yeah, so I don't often do it. It depends on the shot, I should say. Because if it is a very cartoony shot, then I definitely would want them to follow, so I'm not having to look back a mile away where they were. But let's see. So with the lattice, you can see we were able to do the head, but it's not helpful when you've got the eyes and the hair and everything else that's not following. So with lattices, what makes them very powerful is that they are not just for the words are escaping me. They're not just for one selection. So for example, I could take all the faces there, then the hair, and we'll just do these two here. And let's go to Deform Lattice. Now, if I use this, oh, that's horrifying. It'll work with the hair and everything else. So this is where, if you had a character with a hat or a piece of hair that didn't come with the actual rig, a new modded hair piece that, oh, you want to add the squash and stretch, and it's not rigged in, so it doesn't have squash and stretch anymore, you could do this. So let's see if I can get the eyes selected. The main issue here is just trying to get everything selected in a way that's not annoying, because you have to select the geometry, and then you have to select the faces. So it's okay. There we go. So I just clicked and dragged to select everything, and then selected the faces there. That should do it. So let's go to Deform Lattice. Now here we do want to add a little bit more detail. So probably in the T direction, maybe 5, something like that. Again, I never try to move the bottom one because that bottom one is connecting the rest, or the neck, to the rest of the body. If that one moves, you're definitely going to see a distortion. Maybe 6, somewhere there. That gives us enough control there. I could probably just get away with 3 on the front, just left and right. And then maybe 4 here. Just so we have kind of 1 for the face, 1 for the back of the head, like that. Okay. So, with this, now we can take our lattice points, and we have a lot of fine control over this face. If I want to just squash or stretch his face this way, done. I could even use this to reshape the character. So instead of kind of trying to mod your character and sculpt everything, if I want his face to look like this, I just want this to be his new profile, just this very long nose, and this is kind of exaggerating a little bit, but maybe something like that, and maybe let's kind of push in his chin, give him a weaker chin, like that. Everything will still work, so I can still animate him and do everything, and this is the new profile for the character. Will the cage follow the rig? Not right now. So if I do this, you'll see he kind of collapses in on that. That's not good. But all I need to do is, once again, take my lattice and base, group them together, then constrain them to, in this case, the neck controller, or actually, no, I'll constrain them to the head controller. That way it moves with that control as well. Constrain parent. And now, there you go. So that's it. Now I can have that, and we've got a totally new profile for the character super easily. Now you'll notice that it didn't create clusters for this yet. That's because when I'm is there much slowdown? Not much at all. It'll depend on your computer, but you can see, like, I'm moving this mouth control and it feels almost 1-to-1. Now, the more you add, the more it will slow down. It is calculating a lot, but it's not crazy, the amount that it's affecting it. Now, let's say that we, or let me put it this way. There's two reasons that I'll use lattice deformers. One is to animate, squash, and stretch. The other is to deform a character in order to kind of sculpt them. If I'm using it to sculpt the character, I'm not going to worry about clusters, because the whole point is to just kind of deform things. So I don't really need to worry about that. If I'm using it to animate, I definitely need clusters, because this is not a good way to animate things, just not having that ability to reset. Now, can you bake this down? Yes, you can. So the way you would bake this down is you would have to delete the history. If you're using this on a pre-made rig, it's very slow in stream. Oh, is it? Is my stream slow? Okay. Oh, the deformations? Interesting. They don't feel slow. Like when I'm doing this, like, I know there's a little lag on my mouse, but that's actually my that's because of the stream itself. Like it actually feels 1-to-1. And hey, I totally forgot to say, Enervate, an official rocket jumper, and Darkest Jester, thank you so much for the follows. Okay, so it just looks slow. Yeah, it doesn't feel slow. So you can actually see here, if I move this, there's a little lag. You can see the mouse kind of going up and down a little off from, if I really stretch it, you can really see. But it doesn't feel bad. Now, let's see. Let's actually set this. So I'm going to reset this here just by snapping these back into place. Boop, boop, boop. Let's take that. So you can't zero them out, but you can snap them, which does allow you to reset, as long as you have something to snap to. But what I can do now is, let's just take our clusters here. I can make a whole section of clusters. So I could have even taken that whole top half there. And now we can use this to add some squash and stretch to the head. Now the big thing with this compared to the built-in control is the built-in control will squash and stretch the head automatically, so it'll actually expand or contract the geometry based on what you're doing. This doesn't have that, so if I just go down here, all we're doing is shortening his forehead, which actually gives him an interesting look. But I could just stretch this here. I squashed it a little bit too much there. To do that, in order to actually add the squash and stretch. So you'll have to actually scale it in and out. But it does give us that kind of freedom to do whatever we want. And you can see it, you can go really far with that. So there we go. We've got some squash and stretch in there. Then we can animate it and do whatever we want. How do you do that snapping trick? To snap things, just select whatever you want to snap. Then select the axis you want to snap it in. So right now, since the yellow here is highlighted, that means it'll snap in all 3 axes. Then hold your V key. This will activate point snapping or vertex snapping. And then middle mouse drag on where you want it to snap. So if I want to snap it up here, there we go. Snap. If I want to snap in just one axis, so for example, let's say I accidentally moved it out here, and I want to reline it up with the others, select your one axis, so you can see it's highlighted yellow, hold down the V key, middle mouse click, and there we go. So I could line it back up here. Keeps wanting to snap to the hair. There we go. There we go. So it's just holding down V and middle mouse clicking. So that's pretty much it in terms of the lattice. I will say you have to use it with caution because it can deform very easily. Let me put it that way. If you don't have enough detail, or if you kind of just pull it like this, you can see how we're really just starting to break his face more than deforming it in an appealing way. So you do have to use it with caution. But once you kind of get a handle on it, it actually gives you that flexibility to do things with the rig that your rig might not even be closely built to doing. And again, this is especially true for rigs that might just have a lot simpler controls, and you want to add that squash and stretch, you want to make it a little bit more cartoony, or for moments where you really want to push an impact on something. So for example, if I really wanted to feel like his head gets smacked in when he gets a baseball thrown at his head, I could just do that and wrap his head around that ball for 1 frame. Now you'll see, again, you have to watch the appeal because it'll just once you get a handle on, that's a good one. I actually do like that one. So like that, you can start to really shape it. Now the way I kind of try to shape it is I think of my my animation curves. Clusters are very similar in terms, not clusters, lattice points are very similar in terms of how they shape each other, just like your curves in the graph editor. So just like in animation, how we don't want just curves that bounce up and down for most cases, we want a nice clean curve, ease in, ease out, all of that. It's very similar here. I don't want to just have these lattice points just kind of willy-nilly like this, because then you get very harsh deformations, which maybe even in one case would be useful, but if you want a more naturalistic and organic deformation, that's not going to happen. So instead, try to think of how it would ease in and out from one curve or one point here. Maybe I could push the ease out there, go a little faster here, ease in, and then ease in at the bottom just a little bit there. So I'm kind of shaping that the same as I would in the graph editor. And that'll tend to give you some slightly more organic deformations versus just these hard points that don't connect. And then the big thing, don't move the ones that connect the body to the rest, or in this case the head to the rest of the body. Because if you do this, you're just going to decapitate him. It's just not going to look pretty. So I almost always just leave those as is, don't touch them at all. So we've got that. And once again, it's a tool that you probably won't use that often. I will say that. It's not a, like, man, in my arsenal every day of my animation life I'm going to be using this. Nah, not really. But when you need it, it is so nice to have. This would be useful to do study poses of the genie in Aladdin. Yeah, exactly, where you just have this huge squash and stretch, things grow and shrink. And that's the other thing, you can just use it as a scaler to make the head bigger or the hands bigger instead of using the scale controls on the rig. That's what the clusters are for. You can technically key lattice points, but because you can't reset them or actually input any like XYZ inputs, it's kind of useless to do it. Instead, you create a cluster and that gives you all of your attributes that you can then animate. Can you cache a deformer to a blend shape? That I don't know. I've never used those two together like that. I've always kind of kept them separate. I don't think you can, but it wouldn't surprise me if you could. Let's see. I have a question. You know how you can key blend shapes? Is there a way to see that in the timeline? I always have to scrub through and write down where I set them. Ooh, that's a good question. Actually, that goes into the next thing that I want to demo here. So, when we're posing in Maya, we can increase our posing potential by using things like lattices and deformers, clusters, things like that. And actually, let me put a hold on that because I just remembered that I did want to do the cluster demo for Sir Wade, since we're still on clusters, on how to get softer clusters. So, the problem with clusters is that, let's say I want to select a few vertices here on his face. So I'll just select that right there. And I'm going to go to Deform, Cluster. Now, if you go into the cluster options, there's really not that many options in here. So let's just do that. Cluster, yay! And now I move it, and I just get this really sharp motion. That is not useful. That is, well, it's just not helpful because you're just getting this extremely soft motion to things. So, how can we improve that? Well, there's a few different ways. Ideally, we would want to have some sort of soft selection. Now, clusters by themselves don't have that, but what you can do is you can go to paint weights down here, and you can actually paint cluster weights. That can be helpful in kind of getting a soft look. But the problem with that is it's a lot of work just to get what I would want is just like click and drag done. Yeti Kong, thank you so much for the subscription. Happy Star Wars Day. Yes, happy Star Wars Day to everyone. May the 4th be with you. So we could do something like this and try to paint the cluster. Again, I'm not a fan. It's just a lot of work for something that I would want to create a cluster, click, done, let's move on and get to the fun stuff. So, how do we do this? Well, there's another deformer in Maya there's two deformers that most people don't really use or realize is available. Now, you have to use these with caution. It depends on the rig, but I've used these with a lot of success on the AM rigs and a few others. and they seem to work very well, at least for me. I haven't had any or too much trouble with them. So how do I want to show this? Let's actually start with a sphere, and then we'll go up to jewels here. So let's say we have a sphere, and I want to be able to the stream is like unlocking the dark secrets of animation. the secrets no one wants you to know. There's a reason why they were kept hidden. We'll unlock the dark gods after this. So when you're trying to move things in Maya, so let's say vertices, edges, faces, anything like that, there is a tool built into the selection which makes it easier. So for example, I could select this one vertice and I move it, and you'll see it just moves this one vertice. That's it. If I hit B on the keyboard, this turns on soft selection. And if I hold down B and middle mouse drag, I can affect how big that selection is, which softens it up a little bit as well. That's kind of the behavior we want in the deformer, in the cluster, I should say. Now, there is a deformer built into Maya that you can apply to a surface, which will pretty much calculate a soft body. So if I select this sphere and I go to deformer, you have two. You have the delta mush, which is a wonderful name for a deformer, and you have the tension deformer. I personally like the tension. It seems to work faster for me, but they're both really good. So let's add a tension deformer here. And if I select this, you'll see it's actually added there. So what does a tension deformer do? Basically, it wraps around the surface and it creates the feeling that there's surface tension, like skin. So now if I select one vertex here, no soft selection turned on, and move it, look at that. It's shaping it and pulling the other vertices, and you can see it's actually like I'm pulling it and it's starting to pull across the surface as if I'm pulling skin and it's or some sort of rubber substance, and it is affecting it like that. So with just this one deformer, I can do this, and I'm selecting one vertex right now. If I hold, or if I do a soft selection, now it'll affect that whole section. And it's trying to keep basically the surface tension, the feeling that it's all one piece and it's actually stretching. So with that, you can adjust how smooth it goes, the smoothing steps, how far it goes, all of that. Now let me actually undo this. So that's the tension deformer. Okay. Did I undo enough? Okay. Now you also have the delta mush deformer. So delta mush is similar. So if I select one vertex now and move this, you'll see it does kind of the same thing, just in a slightly different way. Like that. Now you'll notice my cursor goes far away. This is basically because it's kind of like a constraint setup where it's trying to smooth it. So as I'm moving it, it's like multiplying the selection downwards. Can you change the range? Yes, you can. So I believe it is the amount of displacement in there as well as the distance weight. So right there. You can also adjust the amount of upward and inward constraints. So yeah, there you go. You can see that's turning it off a little bit more. So you just kind of use all of these to affect how much it's trying to smooth the thing. So you can see without smoothing, that's where the vertex is actually being positioned. But with smoothing, it's bringing it back into place. So you can use those to affect how far and how much gets affected. So why is this all helpful with the cluster? Well, if I create the clusters, this is important. You have to create your clusters first, and then I'll select the rig and just the geometry here and go to deform, and let's do a tension deformer. If we then select the cluster, Look at that. Nice and soft. Because it's trying to pull the skin as if it was actually skin. So I could create a bunch of clusters all over the face or across the hands, across anything. Want to change how the rest of the controls affect it? Technically it does a little bit, but I've done a bunch of testing on a few different rigs because I've been wanting to do a demo on this for a while. And so far I haven't found anything breaking on it, surprisingly, because that's the first question I asked as well. It's like, oh, this is a cool deformer. How can we use this for animation? And it's gonna break. It's gotta break. Like, really, it's just gonna break something. It has to. And it doesn't. That's the thing. And it doesn't even slow it down. I find a delta mush, that kind of slows things down quite a bit. But a tension deformer, no. Now, I don't know if it's me or I'm just kind of telling myself I see it. It does feel like it's affecting certain parts a little bit more, like it's adding a little bit more fleshiness to things. But not enough that it's like, oh, this is going to ruin my animation. And not enough that it's like totally like, oh yeah, this is definitely, oh, I see this change now. It's like, I think maybe it was there, maybe it wasn't. I can't tell. Yeah, exactly. Who would want free fleshiness? Exactly. And all my tests so far is like, whenever I think I see it, it's like, if that's the tension deformer, I kind of like it more anyway. So I'm not gonna say no. Yeah, I know. I was just testing this earlier, and it's like, especially the tension, it adds so quickly too. You just click and then poof, it's there. And now we just get this. This is horrible. What did I create here? But now you get these soft selections. Now the big thing is that the clusters have to be made first, because it kind of builds on top of each other. It takes the construction history. So if you were to create the tension deformer first and then add the cluster on top, the cluster is not going to be affected. So this is kind of the annoying thing, is that you have to know what steps you're going to do. But it does kind of save from having to paint all the cluster weights, which you could do. But again, I'm not a fan of painting cluster weights if I don't have to. It's so much faster to just hit one button and all my clusters are fixed. I'm done. Can you remove the... Oh, do you mean like just remove this completely? Unfortunately not. Just because it's kind of built in. Now I wonder if, can I just apply it to the one cluster? Because I can affect it here. So this is what the cluster would be doing without that tension. You can see how it's affecting all that. But let's try this. Let's undo. I'm going to remove the tension thing, and I'm just going to add it straight to the cluster. I've never tested that before. Okay. So, tension is out of the cluster. We get that. Take the cluster, deform, and let's do a tension deformer. No, it has to be the skin. So what you can do is, if you do find that, you got another cluster in there, dang it, instead of having to undo everything and then redo everything, this is not ideal. But what you can do is just take your tension and turn it down to 0, and then add another one on top. So that's not ideal. So definitely try to do these first. But that would be one way that you don't have to redo everything from scratch. Yeah, you can add several and then just turn their envelope to 0. That turns them off. Now, with that, again, if you want to do this the proper way, that would be painting the constraint or the cluster weights. That would allow you to properly get the deformation in there. But again, if I can get away with not having to paint any weights, I'm happy. Not that it's bad, but it's just longer. Is it a tension node? No, unfortunately, actually, no. There is no tension node. It's kind of like a wrap deformer. So it's kind of in the surface. Now I wonder if you were to go into the node editor. Oh, in the node editor. Yeah, let's take a look here. So there's our tension. Let's see. So what I'm going to do here, just as a test, we've got our tension. Let's select some vertices here. And I did see a question, can a cluster affect like half the face? Yes. A cluster will affect whatever selection you have. So I could select an entire half of the face and do that. But let's add the ear, and you'll notice, yeah, no deformation. But let's see, where's our tension? The tension is right there. Let's delete that. Let's reset the ear. Okay, tension is gone. So actually this might do it. And now deform, tension. There we go. Yeah, so there you go. Node editor saves the day. All you need to do is delete the tension node in the node editor, and then you don't have to redo anything. Yay! Even better. I like this. This is so much easier. And never having to paint weights again. Yes! So, hey, there you go. The emotes are in. Yay! I think. Does everyone see the new emotes? Yay! I wasn't sure if they were going to come up or not. Hey! Refresh. Hopefully they work out. I was having fun taking some of Cameron's drawings of Sir Fuego and then pixelizing them. Yay, they're in! Yes! Victory over paint weighting. Yes! A good celebration for it. I'm actually glad you asked that question, Sir Wade, because I wasn't going to actually cover the tension modifier until a future stream, because I wanted to do some more testing, specifically on this, and we found a solution, so yes! This is awesome. And Pro Mentor 3D, thanks so much for the follow. I really appreciate that. Okay, so we've got all of that. Exactly. It always helps with a fresh pair of eyes to kind of jump in and go, hey, what if you try this? The next demo that I was going to go over was blend shapes. Now, blend shapes are a tool that, if you know about them, you know how awesome they are. If you don't know about them, you're going to learn how awesome they are, because they are awesome tools. They are probably one of my favorite posing tools ever. And they can be very daunting at first. When you first start to learn about them or try to apply them into your work, it can seem like, how do I use this properly? And they make your life so much better when it comes to posing in so many ways. Let's see. What do blend shapes do? Basically, they allow you to sculpt anything you want on the face. This can be made for any little emotion, like any little thing. Or this was a test I was just doing at this before the stream here. Ooh, a new. Oh, nice. Sir Wade's standing desk gonna be here soon. Nice. That's awesome. Can't wait to see that. I saw people talking about something is being ordered, and it's like, what is it? What can it be? That's awesome. I know you've been waiting for that forever. So, blend shapes. In this test here, this was something I was working on just kind of before the stream started. Super quickly, I just kind of posed out the face. And what I was trying to go for is this kind of intense yelling pose, which we can get a bit. It definitely looks like he's yelling, but there's something missing, isn't there? There's a lack of tension in the pose, a lack of strain in the pose. And the reason for this is that as much as we want, and this applies to almost any rig, as much as we want, rigs won't have all the controls we absolutely need to get all the detail we want. Some might, but most won't. And we can use blend shapes to get those in. So with blend shapes, I was able to go from here to here. It's not much of a change, but especially in the neck, you feel that tension now. Now this character feels like they're actually yelling, and you're getting this. All of that tension, the tendons and that sinew in the neck. You're getting that little bit of a dimple that's happening right there. Like when you go like this, you get that nasofold, this fold right here. Well, that pushes against the rest of your cheek, which gets a little dimple right here. There's also a few small wrinkles, if you kind of look right in the eye, a few small wrinkles that happen right in there. This is huge, especially the neck. To me, the neck is one of the most underused sections of a rig. Oftentimes, our rigs have very long necks, so they're very visible. And there's never controls in the neck. Like, we get one control that rotates them, one control that moves it up and down, and that's it. That is not enough for a neck. Necks are amazingly complex. You've got, if you've got like a skinny male character, there's going to be the Adam's apple. You've got, regardless of male, female, whatever, you've got the masseter, Cameron knows the name by heart, the muscle that runs along the neck right here, phyto something something muscle. You've got the tendons and the fascia that connects all across the muscles. You add those in, and suddenly the character goes from to actually yelling, to actually being angry. Sternocleidomastoid. Yes, that's it. That is pretty much it in English as well. Sternocleidomastoid. Cameron always tells me what it is, and then like the day after I forget it right away. So how do we use this? How do we get neck thingy, neck muscle? So how do we use blend shapes? They're very easy. That's the other thing about blend shapes, is it is not some sort of rocket science, oh my god, have to install 20 plugins and just pray to all the dark gods to hopefully not let my explode. No, it's actually very, very simple. So, let's say I'm just going to do a very simple pose here. What happened to the emotes? I added some new ones. These are emotes that I've been wanting to get in the stream for a while now, based on Cameron's Sir Fuego character. So added a whole bunch today. And I've got a whole bunch more, but unfortunately I don't have any emote slots left. So we'll see. That's an awesome Bob Ross one. I believe the animators in Hotel Transylvania use them a lot to push the cartoony poses. Exactly. Yes, I do want a heart one. I want more ones that kind of help communicate things. These were ones that I was doing a test, and I wanted to see if they would work on the stream. So they're not really the most useful, unfortunately. is like kind of random faces. But oh jeez. Oh my god, now I'm gonna have to be dancing for half an hour. Thank you so much, Sir Wade. Awesome. Gotta start at some point. Just start the dancing. Gotta do more of the hand. There you go. Now I wish I could just actually wait. Let's do this. Get the music in there. Hopefully that's coming through for you guys. Gotta do the dancing. For Sir Wade, this is, I think, the first gift sub we ever got him. No, second gift sub we ever got. So I've got to do the whole thing. Thank you so much, Sir Wade. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Gotta put more energy into it. There you go. Get the elbows up. Especially that right elbow. Mario just really swings that. Awesome. Thank you so much. Is there going to be more? Yep. I'm getting my workout in this stream. Just keep going. Keep going. Arms. I'm an animator. My arms aren't supposed to be moving this much. They're supposed to stay down on the desk. Oh, more. Yeah. I know Cameron and I definitely need to. Oh, more. Cameron and I need to record one. I also want to animate one of Sir Fuego at some point, doing the Mario dance with his tiny little arms, just kind of doing that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Now, let's actually get the other music in place here. We had to have the music for that one. Kevin Bo, Mario and Luigi cosplay and make that. Yes, I have been looking for a good Mario and Luigi costume for years. The overalls, that's easy. You just get a good pair of overalls. But like a good high quality Mario and Luigi cap, as well as like a good high quality red and green shirt. That is something I would love. Like that. And Lucas, thank you so much as well. Thank you so much. But yeah, if I can ever find those, you can bet that Cameron and I, we're gonna be dressed as that at some point. Not even just for Halloween. It'll be like a daily thing. Whenever we go out, we're gonna be dressed as Mario and Luigi. I did see a question up above. How soon in the animation workflow do you use blend shapes and clusters and all of that? Usually near the end of it. I don't want to go too early because if I change something, it just means having to redo a lot of work. But if a pose really needs it, I'll use it when it needs it. That's kind of the best answer I can give. So, oh man, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate that. Totally detract me from what I was talking about, but that was awesome. So, what was I saying? Oh yes, blend shapes are easy. That's what we were going to go over. Blend shapes are actually very simple to set up. The way you do it is simply select the geometry you want to add a blend shape to. In this case, it's going to be the character's body. It could be the clothing. If you want to add wrinkles, so as they move, you could sculpt in wrinkles. Whatever you want, just select it. Now, oh, can I send a link for people to see? It's about a contest to create a short movie. Sure. Now, one thing I will say, and this might be not the thing with this contest, but I would be very wary of contests that ask you to animate something for a prize. And this goes for any kind of artistic thing or whatever. Oftentimes, and if this might not be the case of this contest, but this just goes for everyone. If you see something like that, be very wary of it. More often than not, it is whoever is setting up the contest trying to get free work out of people. And that's pretty much it. Because they could either pay an animator or a studio to animate something for them, but that means they get one version and they have to pay for it. With a contest, you can get hundreds of people to submit things. Now you have hundreds of ideas to choose from, and you didn't have to pay a single one of them. So okay, so it's a 2D YouTuber, and you can create your own one. Okay, so that doesn't sound that sounds like a cool thing. Yeah, so just beware of contests like that, especially when it's from a big company, because they can pay someone. They can afford to pay someone, and instead they're using it as a base to get free labor, basically, and then they give out a prize which does not equal nearly as much as whoever should have been paid for it. Now, with that said, this goes on to a whole other tangent here, but I'll try to go over it quickly. With that said, there are things like that where you will have like these little animation challenges and contests where you will, like, how to put this? Well, for example, Doig Swift. They are awesome Twitch streamers. You can actually find their links down below there. Or 11 Second Club. Those are basically contests to, like, or contests or these challenges to animate a certain thing in a given amount of time, and everyone submits. You also see this with like animation collaboratives where everyone gets to animate like 5 seconds or something of an animated show. Those are good. Those are very good. It gives you things to work on. But the reason that they're good is people aren't making money off of them. They're there to help. For example, the 11 Second Club, there's no money being made on the 11 Second Club. The only thing that the one winner gets is a critique, and that's about it. It's just done as a way to help promote the community and get people to be active in the community. The core difference really comes when it's a company using it for promotion, like really heavily for promotion, or where they're going to actually use it as, hey, this is going to be our official slogan or our official design. If that's the case, they are making money off of that design. And as a creator, you should have been paid for it. I'm very, very much into that, where like, I hate the, oh, just work and we'll pay you in exposure. We'll put your design up and see, everyone will see it, and then we'll use the design and we'll get all the money for it, but everyone will see you made it. That is not fair to you as a creator. It's not fair to anyone else. People should have been paid for that. But an animation challenge, that is good. Do animation challenges. I love animation challenges because it gives me an idea of what I can try to work on and then see what other people did, and we can compare, and it builds a community. So yeah, like things like that. It's when companies are using it as like, hey, just do this for us and then you'll get all of this, like, this exposure. Wow. No, not at all. No, do not do it. Do not support that. You are worth more. And this is not a, oh, put companies down, like stick it to the man kind of thing. No, nothing like that. It is simply, you are worth more. Your work and your time is worth more than what they are willing to give you for what they will receive. So you should get more out of it. And if they're not willing to pay, then you shouldn't have to do the work. You could do something else that'll still get you the exact same amount of exposure and build a community versus splitting a community. Now, one thing that does work is things like collaborations. For example, the Game Grumps, they're a YouTube channel. They do Let's Plays and stuff. They have Game Grumps animated, which I was actually in talks with them on actually creating some at some point, which never had the time to do. But they are really good at it because they pay the creators. So they will have people create fan animations of their content, which they then pay the creators very fair wages for, and then promote their work on top of that. So not only do they give you exposure, they pay you for that as well, because they know that they are making money off of your content. They put it on their channel, they make money off of it. But it's not, oh, and see, we'll put it up there and we'll just link to your Twitter. Yeah. No, they give you a wage and then they expose you, or like give you that exposure in there. So things like that, that's good, because you are being paid for your work. Always get paid for your work when it comes to things like that. So, and if you work for free, you said the example that we all have to work for free and then our work is worth less than it as a collective. Exactly. That is a very bad thing, where it's the same with overtime, for example, where let's say you have a studio of people. I know we've totally detracted from blend shapes, but this is a very important topic and I want to cover this because some of you are just entering the animation industry or the art industry or whatever it is. You have to watch out for these, because not only does it hurt you later on, but it hurts those around you, it hurts the industry, and it comes from a good place often. We want to help out, but we have to kind of realize what that can entail. So for example, working overtime, and actually let's go full screen for this, just because nothing's changing on the screen. So if you work overtime, let's say you're hired at a studio and you've got a group of 10 animators. Now, those 10 animators are all working regular hours. And you come in and you go, you know, I really want to help this company. I really want to, I want to show that I can do the work. And you start doing some unpaid overtime where, like, you know, I'll stay an extra hour or two tonight and just get some work done. And then they'll really appreciate all that stuff that I do, which is true. They will appreciate it. But there is a downside to this, which is that the higher ups later on will look at everyone's shots and their work output and go, okay, everyone worked 8 hours a day. They'll look at the other employees, go, okay, they worked 8 hours a day and they finished 400 frames this week. Let's just say something like that. 400 frames this week. 400 frames, 400, 450, 400. So they see all these speeds, and then they come to you. And this could be the same if it was someone else as well. It doesn't have to just be you. They come to your shot, and because you were doing unpaid overtime, they will look at that and go, okay, they worked 8 hours. That's all it shows in the end, is that you worked 8 hours. But whoa, they finished 700 frames. Why did they work 8 hours and they finished 700, and everyone else worked 8 hours and they only finished 400? And I'm assuming this is 8 hours a week, not just a total of 8 hours. Well, if this person can do it, everyone else should be able to. We're hiring them all at the same level. They're all animators. Okay, next project. Everyone is doing this. Everyone has to meet 700 frames per week now. Because, see, someone was able to do it. And it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Where now, instead of you putting in the extra time to entering the stream listening to 700 frames in 8 hours, no, that's 8 hours a week. Or, sorry, 8 hours a day for the week. If that was 700 frames in 8 hours, that animation, hopefully it's just like one long moving hold. Just that for a whole shot, never moving. But yeah, it is not good to do that. If you're gonna work, put in the hours, get paid for it. It might seem like you're actually trying to help, or it might seem like you're helping the company by doing this, but in the end it actually hurts the company. And it hurts everyone around you. And the same goes for others. If they are working overtime, it's going to hurt you potentially in the long run. Is it bad that we have to work overtime? No. As long as the company knows that it's happening. Let's see. Let me catch up with the chat here, because there's a bunch of good things here. A lot of people get super angry at artists like Ghost Hours. Exactly. Because you're making yourself look good, which is not really a good thing, because now the studio will expect this as your medium. Like, this is what you do normally, so now you're stuck doing those Ghost Hours forever, or else it'll look like you're actually, it'll make you look good for a little bit until you have to take a break and not do the ghost hours, and then you'll just look bad. So yeah, don't do it. I hear very similar things in my institute. They took 10 students test, gave 6-hour tests, and never gave the offer letter. Rooster T. I heard it's not a good idea to animate in the 11-second club for your reel, because recruiters probably already saw a different idea for that audio idea, and suddenly you are competing against so many more people. Yes and no. It's one of those things where, yes, recruiters, when people animate for the 11-second club, and this goes for any animation challenge that uses a specific audio file, it's going to become recognizable. A whole bunch of people are now going to have that on their reels, which is not ideal. Usually you would want to have a unique performance on each one. So it's not ideal. Is it a bad thing? Yes and no. If your shot is a good shot regardless, it's going to stand up even compared to all the others. It'll just be that there's going to be that comparison that gets drawn. Now, to me, the worst thing is taking an audio clip or something from an animated film or a very popular TV show. That is the worst thing, because now that recruiter is going to be comparing it to the source material, and that is not good. So I would say, ideally, if you're animating for the 11-second club, if possible, try not to use that for your reel, but you're putting a lot of time into it, usually a month of work. So if you're going to do it and you don't have any other shots on your reel, then use it. Or if it is a really good shot, better than any other shot on your reel, then use it. Like, if it's going to improve your reel in terms of animation quality, there's nothing wrong with that. But just be aware that it is going to be a little repetitive, potentially. Let's see. But sometime over time is the only way to really push your work as the level you really wanted. And it helps you be satisfied at your work and to get back to work the day after. But I agree with you. It shouldn't be the solution. Yes. So sometimes, and I think this goes over another thing that someone mentions, sometimes you will have to put the extra hours in. Yeah, that's true. Like, sometimes a project has to get done and just got to do it. But if at all possible, make sure those are paid hours so the studio knows that you're putting it in. Or if it's to train yourself, don't put it in at the studio, put it in at home, where you're working at the studio, and then you come home and you go, I really have to understand this cartoony animation stuff. Then animate at home doing a really short cartoony shot. So that way when you get back to the studio the next day, you can take what you learned, reapply it to your work. This way you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, and you're not forcing everyone else to kind of keep up with those ghost hours. And what if it's your first job, you are not good enough, so you need to spend more time on a project? If that's the case, they will give you, if you're new to a project, they expect you to not keep up with everyone else. So it's okay if your hours don't meet everyone else's. The problem is if you are putting ghost hours, suddenly, it's again, you're shooting your future self in the foot, because now they're going, wow, this guy just started and he's already keeping up. When he gets some more experience, we can give him bigger projects that will really challenge him. This stuff's not hard enough yet. So you're just shooting yourself in the foot because you're setting unrealistic expectations on your capacity to work. Be honest with your work. If you are struggling at a new job, and struggling not in the sense of like barely keeping up, but like you're not as fast as the others, ask your animation supervisor, ask your team, how can I work faster? And get some help to do it the proper way versus the ghost hour way. Again, some overtime isn't bad to learn and whatnot, but try as much as you can to avoid it. Some overtime isn't bad, but if you're doing it all the time, you're hurting everyone. Yeah. So if it's like every here and there, that's fine. It doesn't kind of get lumped into your final numbers. But if it's every day, especially when you're first starting out, if you're just doing every day, you're spending some ghost hours in there, that's just gonna hurt you and everyone. Let's see. But it should be calculated in a way that movies are the quality they are without needing people to do unpaid overtime. Exactly. And for me, one of the biggest things that I wish is that the whole like crunch term, crunch is very bad in the sense, at least for me, like everyone goes, hey, we are in crunch mode. Yeah, we're putting the final percent on there. Crunch mode means that the project wasn't properly scheduled. Not all the time, but to me it kind of gives the feeling that it wasn't properly scheduled, which means that everyone now has to work overtime in order to make sure they meet the deadline that was set at the beginning. If the project had been properly managed from the start, or if crunch time had been anticipated right from the start, there really shouldn't be that much crunch, honestly. And maybe this comes from like baking bread when I was a baker. Like if Cameron and I ran into crunch time at the end when the bakery is about to open, and we didn't have all the bread ready, we didn't have the cookies ready, and now we're starting to just like try to do 5 things at once, that means that we didn't do our job correctly the night before in prepping all the bread. Our goal every day was that when the bakery opened, everything was fresh, right on the shelves, and we weren't trying to throw everything out like straight from the oven, because bread needs to sit for a little bit before it can be bagged, all of that stuff. If you're just rushing things at the end, that means that you didn't prep properly. So that comes down to, like, again, if all the animators are putting ghost hours in, then the studio is going, well, they can all do this. We'll set our schedule to this date. And now when the animators can't keep up with that schedule, now it goes into crunch time. So we inadvertently create our own crunch in certain ways. So yeah, it's tricky. One more bad thing with ghosting is if you did it to get promoted, usually then you pressure and think the next round of juniors to do the same. Yeah, exactly. You're just hurting yourself and others. It's very, very important to be honest about your hours with the company in order to make the best work environment for yourself and for your coworkers. I've had a talk with fellow junior because of that. He was doing a lot of overtime, and I told him, dude, you're setting a bad example for the rest of us. It's not just about you. In the best conditions, as in all rig work, studio is perfect, etc., etc., etc. And then when things change or don't go as planned, crunch. Exactly. I can already feel it in our project. Yeah, it's one of those things where it is hard to like prep. Like Cameron and I were baking bread, and we would run into crunch mode every once in a while. We now consider doing that on a huge project, multi-million dollar project with thousands and thousands of people working on it, like a big project. Crunch is gonna happen, but crunch should not be one of those things that people praise. It should be, hey, we got, like, our last project was a month of crunch. This project we only had 2 weeks. That was, see how close we got? Like, the ideal should be not, oh wow, we did 6 months of crunch. Yeah, whoa, that was awesome. No, it should be, we only got 1 week of crunch on this project. We were like, it should be like trying to hit a bullseye. Like, okay, we get this to the letter, if not maybe a little earlier. But that should be the goal of, at least to me, of setting a project's deadline. That would be really cool to see that mindset. And the problem is, it's not just the executives or anything, it's everyone. There's this kind of universal mentality that crunch or overtime or all of this stuff is good because it means that we worked harder and we worked stronger and we pushed ourselves to do this thing that we loved. And yes, that's true, but it should have been able to be done regardless of that. so that we can work on other things too, other things we love, and have families and spend time with them versus spending 60 hours a week at a studio, or 80 hours a week, or 100 hours a week at a studio. So yeah, off topic there, but it is a very important topic, especially the ghost hours. Do not put ghost hours in. It is not good. When I started, I used to do that, not in animation, but kind of just when I would volunteer work for people. It's like, oh yeah, I can do that, and then I'd do some extra hours just because I wanted to help out. And it took me a little bit before I realized, you know, I'm not helping anyone with this. I don't ghost my hours though. I put extra hours in, but I never ghost them now. I tell people how much extra hours I put in, yeah, I just need to stop putting in the extra hours so I can sleep. That's my next goal. I should drink. So, do your supervisor ever ask it of you? Does that ever become an issue? Oh, okay, that's for Sin. So, with all that, let's get back to the demo. Wrapping back around. Blend shapes. They're easy to do. So, to create blend shapes, it's actually very, very simple. Select the piece of geometry you want to add the blend shape to, in this case the body. Go to Windows, Animation Editors, and then Shape Editor right here. Now this will open up the Shape Editor and show all the blend shapes that are currently on that object if they have it. So, taking a little bit here. There you go. So here's all the blend shapes on the Jules rig by default. You can see there's a lot of them. Let's just minimize that so we don't have to look at those. Okay, so it just takes a little bit because there's so many. There we go. So we've got our shape editor here. Let's create a new blend shape. With the body selected, I'll hit create blend shape, and I'm going to add a target. That's basically adding the geometry in there. Boop, right there. So we've got our new blend shape, and we've got Jules render body, and it's already in edit mode. What this means is that it's ready to take in new inputs. So, for example, let's say I want to, I don't know, let's add those neck details again. I'm just going to do this as a quick test, and then we'll actually do a pose. So, with this, I'm going to now take the body, and I'm going to go to my modeling menu set, mesh tools, and I'll open up my sculpting tools. I find the sculpting tools are nice to work with because it just feels more natural than trying to poly model it. So let's take the sculpt tool. This is going to just allow me to pull and push the surface, and let's just start sculpting. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of add that muscle right there, and to change your brush size and everything, hold down B and middle mouse drag to change the brush size, M to change the intensity. So let me make it a little bit more intense here. So I just want this kind of muscle right here. Now this is stuff that you will need a tablet for. If you're trying to do this with your mouse, it gets very hard to shape these correctly. And to get that pressure, because as I'm doing this, I'm putting very light pressure at the top, increasing the pressure at the bottom so I get that taper. Okay, now that is off a little bit. This is where you also need to understand anatomy. This muscle attaches to the clavicles right down here, so if I have it crossing across there, that's gonna that's not gonna be good. So let's come down there. That's better. So yes, he's getting buff. And you can use this as well to, like, if you want your character to flex, you can use a blend shape to make a flex in the arm. Build the bicep up. Bicep. build the bicep up. Okay, I did say all right. And then like shape the tricep and all of that. Now, with all of this, can't you use symmetry? Yes, I can. I try to avoid symmetry as much as I can though. So if you go to tool settings, there's a few things that I can do. I can turn on symmetry. So object X, now you'll notice that it does both sides. You can also, this is something I like, turn on steady stroke. So by default, it'll just kind of go across like this. If you turn on steady stroke, you'll notice there's this little arrow that basically allows me to stabilize my strokes. And it, at least for me, like getting muscle details, it makes sure it kind of stays a little bit more even and not wiggly and wobbly. Okay. Now, another thing to keep in mind with blend shapes is that they are dependent on how much detail you have in the model. That's kind of the thing that's tricky with them. So for example, if I wanted to take this, let's make it a little smaller, and I wanted to add some detail right in here, you'll see that it doesn't work because there's not enough detail in that part of the body. So the amount that you can use blend shapes are very dependent on how detailed your rig is. Sometimes you'll get rigs that are just like, oh, so much detail that you can work with and you can shape everything. Others you have to kind of play around with and you might not be able to get what you really want. But let's see, and I'm gonna hold down control here. I'm just gonna carve into the neck just a little bit here, just to add some slight shaping there. Kind of pop that shape out just a little bit. And then let's kind of add those tendons. So the tendons run kind of from, it's not really tendons, but like the lines that you get here, they run from the chin down here and then on the sides. So I could add some small ones there. That's a little too small. Let's make it a little bit bigger. So I can start adding some right in here. And then I'm holding down shift to just smooth it out a little bit. So I can start doing that. Really be subtle with this. Don't go too far like that. That's just gonna feel very weird. Are you allowed to do this? It depends on the studio. Some will be totally happy to allow you to do this. Others will not. So you just have to be careful which studio you're trying to do this at. Let's actually add some more up here. I'm just starting to shape the neck a little bit. Right there. Soften that out. So trying to add these lines of the tendons and sinew. And it takes a while. Don't try to rush this. Take your time, shape it, because these will be shapes that you can use consistently throughout your shot in the future as well. So take the time to make them look good. Make sure they're not lumpy. Things like that. So yeah, take your time with it. Now I'm not going to take too much time or else we're going to be here all day. Yeah, so many roids! Now another thing I do like to do is I'll like grab the grab brush and just kind of, for something like this, like if you're doing this, the front of your neck gets wider because of the way the tendons kind of pull in. So I can kind of shape that back a little bit. Let's smooth that out a little. And just kind of pull that out. And even maybe shape the chin a little bit because this gets pulled down just a little bit. So something like that. Now this is not perfect. I would definitely want to put more time into this to actually shape it correctly. But let's say this is the way we want it. Now, you can just use the slider right here. Well, actually, let's put it back here. There we go. So now you have the ability here to take the blend shape and tone it in and out. So now, if I want him to start getting a little stressed, I could just tone this up a little bit. And now we just get this like subtle, like you start to see the tendons coming out. And this is what, normally what I'll try to do is I'll over exaggerate. So like here, get that roided look, really make that neck huge. And then this way I can just tone it up a little bit and we get that detail in the neck. And you just see it catch the light a little bit, which is how, like, when you go to something like this, now you have that neck right in there. Like that. Now let's add another target here. So let's select that. Let's add another target. So we're adding the body again. So one's the neck, but I could add one to the face as well. Now, one thing I will say, normally I try to do this on a pose that's actually created. Right now I'm just doing this on a blank face to show how to do it. Then I'm actually going to pose something out for a demo. But I just wanted to show the how first. So if I want to add like a line to the face here where the cheeks kind of sink in, once again, be very careful. Build it up slowly so that you don't get too much distortion in the face. Something like that. So now we get these kind of little dimples in there, which, that's way too much right there. But which will kind of add that like line right in here. And these are separate from the neck, so I could tone these up or down. Or tone the neck up and down. So I have full control over all of these. Now, with this, I can now, let's say, turn off edit mode here. Now I'm not working on them. And let's call this neck. Neck angry. So now, whenever I need him to start getting angry, I can just key this, turning on and off, and I get all the deformations. You can add it into the eyes, so you can add another one here just for the eyes to get wrinkles and like more squinty in the eyes. And you can just animate that. And you can do that by hitting the key button right here. Now, there was a question earlier on how can we see this key information? Where is it? I believe if you select the body here, you'll find it. So neck angry envelope right there. So you have to select the body itself. Now it'll also show all the others. This is why it's very important to name it something easy to find. So now I can actually, if I'm animating it, I can adjust my animation in here and make sure that, oh, it's not in the timeline? So if you actually want to see it in the timeline, let's do this. Let's see if this will show up. So if I go into right there, so open up the node editor and select it right here. So neck angry. And now you'll see it in your timeline. And then you can make a quick select set for it somewhere. So on your shelf or something. Node editor is an awesome editor. So yeah, just select it and it'll be right there. Boop. And now you can easily retime things, and you could make a selection set that has all of them built in. So that way you can just kind of quickly go through your dope sheet or graph editor. So that's basically blend shapes. It drove me crazy in Class 6. I had blend shapes from the start for the weird faces with Jules, and retiming is horrible. Yeah, it's it can be horrible, especially if you're trying to retime things. That would be a nasty, nasty thing to try and do. But yeah, the node editor will be your friend there. The graph editor looks scary. Yeah, it does look scary. Luckily, really the only thing we're looking at is this one. The rest are all just the built-in blend shapes for the rig. Now, this is also where, for anyone who's tried this, if ever you've tried a rig with newer versions of Maya, if you right-click in the timeline, you can go to Enable Stepped Preview, which will take all of your curves, or all your animation, I should say, and set it in a mode that looks like it's in stepped. It's technically not. All your curves in the graph editor are still going to be in splines, but you can turn that on. And that's great. Except a lot of times when that happens, rigs will start to distort or not work correctly. The reason for that is, well, look at all the curves that are built into the rig. These are all the blend shape curves, just for the body itself, not for everything else. So if all of these are set to step mode because of this, things are going to break. So just be careful of that. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes rigs kind of explode a little bit. That's what usually tends to happen for the rigs I use. I know for the Zelda rig, her eyes stop following correctly. And they look a little odd. So all the blend shapes are just being switched to a stepped mode, which normally kind of turns them off, which can run into some unappealing things. Now, is that a problem? Not really, but we just have to be aware of it. So let's create a new scene here, and let's do a facial pose. So I'm just going to bring Jules back in here. The only reason I'm doing this is so that we have a totally fresh scene. But in 2016, Step Preview also changed the graph editor. I think it does. I'll have to test this. I think it changes the graph editor display, but it doesn't change your tangents. That's the big difference. So normally if you take your graph editor and then go into stepped mode, all those tangents, if you turned and adjusted your tangents, broke your tangents, all of that would be gone. Which means that if you then hit splines again, you have to redo all your tangents unless you hit undo. That's not good. Stepped Preview puts it into step mode, but it doesn't change any tangents. So this way, you can just uncheck it and everything's back to normal. That's kind of the main difference between switching to step mode and the stepped preview. Now, the problem with step preview is it's a global preview, so everything is in step mode, which means all the blend shapes are in step mode. When you actually change it manually to step mode, you choose what you want to be in stepped, which is why then things tend to look better and don't explode. Jules taking a while to reference in here. You doing critiques? I will in just a little bit. I'm just going to do a kind of a pose just to show how I would use the boy, this is taking a while. How I would use the blend shapes. That's the word I'm looking for. Took a while to get there. So, but in 2019 it doesn't change in graph editor? Oh, it doesn't? Interesting. I never really tried it with 2016, so I can't remember that. Did I even use 2016? I think I might have skipped 2016. I think I went from 15 all the way to 17. Boy, this is really taking a long time. I wonder if Maya crashed on me. Surprised me. Either that, or is that little window hidden somewhere? The student license version. Maya, what are you doing? Oh, there you go. I think. There you go. Just took a long time. Quick question. In the UV editor, how do I select a shell without selecting the border polygons on other shells? Oh, Maya just closed. Okay, let's open up another version of Maya. So, how do I select the shell? Selecting the border polygons on other shells. So do you mean so that you don't accidentally select the shells from everything else? So let's see here. So let's go in here and I'll bring in the rig and I'll check the UVs on that one, on the rig, to see how we can select the shell. The joy of waiting for things to open up. Let's see. There we go. See, shouldn't take that long. Now it's opening. It's actually moving. Progress bar. We're already at 70%. When I select and move a shell, it also selects and moves polygons that are on different shells, but also part of the one that originally selected and moved. So they're actually attached. If they're still attached, you would need to split them or separate them. So even if you're selecting a shell, if it's still connected in some way, it will move together. So you need to cut it or separate. So for example, let's go to UV editor. So we've got all of these different pieces for the Joules rig. If I want to select any of these, I can just select, for example, some UVs here, and then I can go to, I'll hold down Control, and I'm going to go to UV shell. And it's running just slow. There we go. So now it's select that whole UV shell for me, and just the shell. If that should work, and then you should just be able to move just that on its own. If you select vertices on the edge here, and then hold down Control and go to UV shell, this should select not only this item, but anything that also shares UVs on that border. So the big thing is make sure you select just parts of the UVs that are within the shell itself, or like within that area right in there. Now, if you actually want to separate it, you would just go to select the edge that you want to separate from, and then cut, and just cut that. And now that will separate the two, and you can move them apart from each other. Let's see. Why does the unwrap look like Tweedledee and Tweedledum? Just because you're basically unwrapping the whole thing. It's actually horrifying in a sense, and it takes a lot of work to do it right. This is one of my least favorite parts of modeling. Was always doing the UVs and having to unwrap everything in a way that's easy to see and work with. So hopefully that answers your questions. If not, let's see, I'm trying to think what if I'm misunderstanding, but hopefully that helps. Now let's actually go back in here. Okay, and let's just do a quick pose here and just show, we'll just do one pose just for time's sake, and we're gonna keep it kind of quick, nothing too fancy. So let's do a an expression, maybe a sneer. Sneers are kind of an interesting one with rigs because oftentimes we just don't have the controls for them. So for example, with a sneer, the mouth kind of comes up a little bit. Let's kind of bring the mouth corners in. Maybe give him a little bit of a frown there. Tighten the lips a little bit. Especially the top lip. Yeah, zoom that out. Okay. Try to build an offset in there. I might even add just the hint of a sneer in there. So something like that. Get that mouth in position. Now, I think the lips would probably come in just a little bit more. Something like that, maybe. Okay. Now the nostrils, if you do that, they're going to come up. We'll see that nasal fold come in. That already helps add that kind of sneery effect. If you don't move the nostrils, you're not going to get a sneer that feels right. Okay, so something like that. The brows, let's kind of get the eyes in place here first. The eyes are going to come down a little bit. The brows are definitely going to come down. Let's kind of get a little scowl in there. And let's kind of offset the brows so we get just a little bit more visually dynamic pose. Okay. So we get something like that. Let's push the eyelid up a little bit. And we can start doing all the things that we've talked about in previous streams about posing out the eye. For example, if it's a sneer, we want to make sure the inner corner of the eyelid is tighter than the outer corner. That's going to give the feeling that he's actually compressing those muscles near the nose. Make sure I work that skin under the lower lid there to kind of push that. So, okay, very quickly we can get something like this. Let's maybe push that jaw in a little bit as well. Kind of add some compression. And then let's add a line of action to the face. Very slightly. So we start to get something like this. So that didn't take too long. And we get this kind of sneer look to him. Now, I'm actually going to find those other controls. These are always hard to find. Yeah, where are you? There it is. Hidden behind the other one. Okay. So this is the skin above the eye. I'm just going to lower this down. Okay. So, we've got the sneer. And it looks okay. It's not bad. To be fair, we did it very quickly. But it's kind of missing some stuff, isn't it? Specifically, all the detail you get around the nose is just, it's too smooth. We can try to push the cheeks up here a little bit, kind of build those up, maybe move the cheeks up here a little bit, kind of puff them out a little bit more. So that can help, but it's still missing that feeling of an actual sneer. I might even let's just take the corners of the mouth, and I'm gonna see if I can push the seal corner just a little bit more. That bottom lip needs to kind of come out a little bit more. There you go. That feels better. Makes him a little bit poutier. Okay. So we've got this pose, and it's okay, but again, it could be pushed more. So this is when blend shapes come in. So you pose the face, and then you try to figure out, okay, what do I need? Take the blend shape, or sorry, take the mesh, go to Windows, Animation Editors, Shape Editor. Such a happy song for such a sour puss of a face. I love this music. Super Mario Sunshine was... Cameron and I lived that game for so long. So good. Okay, let's create a blend shape. We can call this Sneer. Cyril Sneer from the Raccoons. If anyone gets that reference, I will be surprised. If anyone remembers Cyril Sneer and the cartoon The Raccoons with Bert Raccoon. So let's add a target here. So that just puts the geometry in, and it puts it into edit mode right away. Oh man, if it's coming back to the Switch, oh geez, I'm so behind on my games catalog, and that's gonna put it further behind because I want to play that. And Super Mario 64 too. Oh man, oh, too many games. Okay, so we've got this in edit mode. Let's actually make this just a little smaller. Get out of the way. And now we can start to work on the face. Now, once again, we could use any tools we want. We could use just basic select vertices, move them around. We can do anything. In my case, I want to use the sculpt tools. So I'll just go to Mesh Tools, Sculpting Tools, open this up. And let's start with our Sculpt tool. And the first thing I'm going to do is I want to add the lines that come like right in there. There's this kind of sneer lines that come through, and it kind of comes from the corner of the eye. Now, luckily with the face, the really cool thing, and actually just to speed things up here, let's actually show how symmetry works too. I'm going to turn on symmetry. Let's do Object X. The lines of the rig will usually match how the skin deforms. So we get a little bit of a ridge here. Not too much. This is also where a mirror comes in very handy. I can't quite see on my screen here, but for example, when I do that, there's this kind of line that comes through here, and here I can just go full screen, so you can see if I do this, it's these lines right here on the nose, how it comes from the corner of the eye, and then it kind of sinks this line right here a little bit more too. So let's try that. And actually, I'm going to redo this because I want to get the line here first. So kind of think that in. Oh, make sure symmetry is on. So push that. Once again, it's not bad if you go over too far, or like too deep. That's not a bad thing. Because in all honesty, I'd rather go too deep, and then I can always tone it down using the other tools. So let's take it slow here. I'm gonna smooth that out right there. Now, you've got a lot of tools you can use here. You've got this one, which is just the sculpting tool, lets you pull surfaces in and out. Another really good one is the pinch tool. The pinch tool will take surfaces and just kind of bring them together. So for example, with this, I could pinch this line together and it just kind of tightens it up a little bit more. You've got the relax tool, which is similar to a smooth, but it kind of just is like the opposite of the pinch. It just pulls everything out. Yeah, asymmetrical wrinkles are amazing. This is why I'm using this kind of for demo purposes. I never use symmetry when I'm sculpting facial details because they're just not symmetrical. In this case, it'll save time, but let's see. You can kind of push the nose in right there just a little bit. Okay, what else? Maybe kind of push in some details right in here. Just in the corner of the eye, these little wrinkles. Let's use the pinch tool again. Kind of pinch those together. And again, when you're doing this, take your time with it. There's no rush. Really try to get these to feel... I'm actually going to turn off symmetry for this because they're right next to each other. You want to get this to feel right first, and then you can kind of keep building it. And try to work with the detail of the rig if you can. So what I mean by that is you'll notice that I'm trying to follow the lines of the face. What is the rig for? This is just for fun, just to demo something for everyone. So let's kind of add some more kind of lines along the nose here. Now with the nose, you have to kind of be careful because this is a bony bit right here. So this is where you also have to think of your anatomy. And if the skin is kind of being pressed down here, I have to be very careful that I don't go too far, or else it'll feel like someone's broken his nose. Okay. Let's maybe add a tiny little one right here. Now you'll notice that I'm pulling and pushing the surface. The way I'm doing that is you can hold down Control and it'll reverse the line. So for example, if I just stroke the line here, it'll pull it out. If I hold down Control, it'll push it in. So let's kind of... another thing you can do is, I started with symmetry on both sides. Now I'm starting to go through and just kind of offset things. So breaking apart that symmetry. Maybe no, let's not do that. Now here I could maybe add just a little sinking in of the cheeks here. Just a little bit. Just to get some shape in there. Maybe we want to push the naso fold right here. Just a little further. Really sell the unhappiness of this sneer. Now, this is kind of tricky to do with a lot of rigs just because of the shape of the chins, but there's kind of a little dimple here that gets created between the bony part of the chin and then the lip. So when you do this, it kind of, you see the musculature of the chin a little bit more there. So I might just kind of add that in there. So we've got that. Now another thing you can do is, one thing I like is the grab tool. The grab tool is wonderful because sometimes you're going to try something on a rig and there's just not a control where you need it, or it's like you want to push it but you just can't quite. The grab tool will allow me to just kind of move things and basically shape them however I want. So if I want a little bit more of a line here, like that, there we go. If I want a little bit more of a sneer on this nose, I can just pull it exactly where I want. If I want even like maybe the corner of the eye, if I can't get quite the straight line that I want normally, I can push it right through here. Now the problem is I'm not sculpting the brow, so I have to be very careful here, or else the hair won't move as well. But maybe I want like a little bit more of a compression right in here. Maybe a little bit of the nose coming up as well, the skin of the nose there. Let's tighten this corner of the eye just a little bit. So, something like that. What other ones? The flatten tool is pretty good. This will just make things flat. So you can see if I did that to his nose, it's flat. So if ever you kind of feel like you've taken something off or like rounded it out too much, you can use the flatten tool to kind of sink it back in. Let's see, I kind of want to push the grab here. Now the grab tool will work from your camera, so you'll notice that if I try to grab this and move it, it moves perpendicular to the camera, or if I hold down control, it'll move based on the surface. So what this means is I want to pull this cheek out to add a little mass. I'm just going to hold down control, and now I can pull this out from the surface level. It kind of rounds out that area right there. Now another thing I'm noticing is, let's go back to our sculpt tool, and there's another line that kind of comes down like right there. Let's see if we can exaggerate. Yeah, that just feels like I'm cutting into the cheekbones too much. It's like right around here, but it's hard to... Some people have this a lot, like for example me, I tend to have a line, especially when I start to get tired or dehydrated. I get a line right across here. It's where the cheekbones end. Some people don't have that, or have it very little, so don't need to worry about that too much. Oh, take care, Nicholas. So we can start doing that, and maybe let's push the nose here. And Gamer Guy, as well as Chococo, thank you so much for the follows. And Jack. I've been terrible at kind of keeping up with the notifications. So let's say I want to add just a little bit more compression on that nostril here. As it goes up, we can do that. So there we go. And we can just keep going with this. Like, there's nothing stopping us from just keeping this going. Now, is there an inflate tool? Amplify. That's what I'm looking for. I want to see if I can... No, not amplify. Which one? Bulge. That's it. I want to bulge out the corner here. Just a little bit. Just like the tiniest hair. The reason for that is we have a node right here where the lips connect that kind of bulges out a little bit. So I want to see if I can add that in. Yeah, I'm just not adding what I wanted to. That's fine. So with this, let's actually call this for now. And this is what we have now. This is our sneer. Now, it might be a little too much, but that's why we can now take this and tone it down. So you can see this is without, this is with. It's not a huge difference, but it adds that, like, even if I just add a little bit of it, like just that, seeing that kind of line under the eye there, and just kind of the lines through here, adds that extra little bit. And the amount you go with this is up to you. Now you can take this and go all out, just sculpt it into a whole new face. And this is another thing, you can use blend shapes to reshape a character's face. So let's see, something like this. Now, another thing you can do with the AM rigs is you'll notice that this is kind of low res. This is still the render pass on the character, so this is the high res version of the rig. If I hit 3 on this, it'll come up with this. I'm smoothing out a large number of polygons, but I can still smooth it. And now we get this. Now, I would need to soften up in there a little bit, but now we get kind of this softer look to these lines. So we get that, and you can even see like the crow's feet in the corner there coming out a little bit. Now this is a little intense, so let's bring that down. And there we go. Now we get an actual sneer, not just a, oh, he's angry. No, now he's really angry. And this can be happiness. If you want someone to smile and you want to add those dimples in there, like the little lines there, a dimple in the corner, you can do that. So that's our sneer modifier. Now let's turn off the edit mode here. If I wanted to, I could create another blend shape, and then this could be, like, blend shapes are so powerful. This could be just chin. We'll call this the chin modifier. Make sure I just have the body here. Add target, and we're just going to use the grab tool. Actually, before I do this, let me actually put the rig onto low res mode. There we go. So we'll go to the grab tool, turn on symmetry, and I could actually okay, so grab tool, symmetry X, and let's make that bigger. And I could just give him an awesome chin. Like, I want this guy to be like that hero pose where he's just got that amazing chin. Create blend shape, create target. So the blend shape creates the kind of entire container that will control the entire shape. And then the targets add the geometry that you want to affect. And basically what this makes it so is that, for example, the sneer, I could have added one big master sneer control. And then I could have added multiple targets. So one is just affecting the lines around the mouth. One is just doing the lines around the eyes. So I'm kind of breaking it up so I can have more control on every single element if I wanted to. I just kind of did it all on the one target. But it's really what you want to do here. So let's kind of get that chin in there. Now he should have the dimple chin. I think we all agree on that. It's gonna be a heroic chin. It needs the dimple. Let's see if I can get that in there. Probably soften it up a little, or shorten it a little bit. Do I include blend shapes in my planning? Probably not my planning. It's just one of those things where I'll pose out the character how I need them, and then if I need a blend shape, I'll add it in. Or if I know, for example, like this, where I'm going to be kind of reshaping the character, then that's not so much planning, just kind of working with the shot. So it's like the character design element if I know if I'm going to mod them. But now we have this. And the nice thing is, I don't even have to animate this one. Like the other one, I could animate the sneer for when he's sneering. This is now just a modification on the rig that I can just leave, and it works. And the nice thing with this, let's get this off edit mode here, is if I bring in all my controls again, they all work. I can still animate, So at this point, I now have Jules with an awesome chin. So it's one of those things I definitely recommend playing around with, because you can very quickly. So I could have, for example, one for his nose or one for his chin. Let's create another blend shape here. So make sure I just have the one body selected. Add the target. We'll call this nose. So these aren't specific emotions. These are just kind of global shapes that I want. And this one, let's again turn on the symmetry. Now, I will say, if I'm doing a body mod where I'm using the blend shapes to mod the body, then I'm going to make sure I have him in his default pose first. I'm not going to have him in an expression. If this is to enhance an expression, then I want that expression to be in there first. So with this, let's see, are there age restrictions? Not really. The main thing is, if you're trying to go into animation schools, usually it's you have to be 18 or older, just because of accreditation and things like that. But there's no age for getting into animation. If I wanted this long hook nose, for example, really get that what's the right word? What's his name? Count Olaf from A Series of Unfortunate Events nose in there. And yeah, in terms of the age thing, yeah, there's no limit. It's really just in terms of schooling, that can be a limit, but there are programs you can find. Like, there's a link down below to the what's it called again? Now I'm gonna forget the name. It's linked down below. It's a school for learning animation for anyone who's 13 to 18. Let's see. Sorry if this has been addressed, but can you save this and carry it with Jules from scene to scene? Yeah, so what you would do, if you want to make a modification, so make the nose bigger or the chin bigger or whatever, what you would do is you would open up the rig in a base scene, just a new scene, modify it, then reference that rig into your scene. Then in your scene, that's when you would do the sneer and the anger and the happiness, the actual emotions in there. But the actual modification blend shapes would be in a previous file. This way you can always kind of edit them and come back into it. So now we have this character. And you can see, because I'm using the sculpting tools, we have a lot of control over the finesse of these shapes, which is always a lot of fun. So, Sims character editor, oh, the horrors that created. So even like if I wanted to create, I think we were talking about this in a stream once, like elf ears, could do that. Now you'll notice that it's affecting the skull behind. This is the fall off. So I just need to change my fall off here and make sure it's probably set to, let's see, volume. Yeah. So the problem with surface is it considers, or actually maybe surface would work better. No. So surface just considers like what the control is currently over top of. So the surface is just kind of a global brush. It's looking through the object. Volume calculates based on the area you're clicking on. So I click on the ear here, it shouldn't affect the back of the head as much. I might have to make this just a little smaller. Come on. There we go. So I could start doing that if I wanted. What else? Now, I don't want to do that because this is for the nose. But there we go. Now, that nose is a little too much there, so let's tone it down. Maybe just a little bit more like that. But now we have a very different Jules. Let's see. After this, deformation will work. Do you mean like the animation and stuff? Yeah. So, like, even with all of this, if I go and start animating the character, all my controls still work. My nose, nostril controls still function. So I can still animate the character, and now I have my own custom modification versus just always using the same rig all the time over and over and over. Now you have to be careful how far you go with this, because for example, if you make the chin just absolutely huge, or especially things like lips that have very fine controls, it will deform in ways that are unpredictable. Yeah, in most cases you're gonna be able to get away with quite a bit, surprisingly. Let's bring that brow down. There we go. So we get that. And yeah, so that's blend shapes. Blend shapes are extremely powerful. So like going back to our sneer here, if I turn that one off, you can see how he looks peeved. He's got his brows down, but he doesn't really look like really angry. You add that in, and when you start getting those lines under the eyes, a little bit larger lines on the forehead, suddenly that really bumps up that energy of the shot. Even like a little bit, you can just feel it a little bit in the cheek right there. It's not much, but it's there. It's amazing how much you can push the quality of your work. Yeah, that kind of, it kind of has that feeling of that age slider, just young to old, and you can do the same thing here, kind of. Now there is another step above this. So blend shapes are really nice, but they have limitations. Specifically, they only work with the detail that you have on the rig, which means that if your rig is not highly detailed, you're not going to be able to get much deformation in here. Like all the little lines of the face, it's not going to happen. For example, with this rig, you can't really get crow's feet in the corner of the eyes, like these tiny little wrinkles. You can kind of get larger shapes, but that's about it. The next step above this, which I'm not going to demo here because it takes, I'd rather do a full demo just on that, is you can use displacement maps on a character, which is basically a texture that goes over top of the character, and regardless of the amount of detail on the rig, you can get fine detail, little tiny lines, little tiny wrinkles in the rig, that can really add a lot. Now the problem with that is that you have to typically create the displacement maps either manually in something like Photoshop or something like that, which is a pain, or you have to do it in something like ZBrush, which again is a pain, because you'd have to take your pose. Let's say this sneer pose here, take this, export it into something like ZBrush or Mudbox, sculpt all the details you would want in there, bring it back into Maya, add it as a displacement map, and then you can animate the displacement map to bring in those details. But again, that would mean that you could get infinite amount of detail in here. Let's see, would you recommend using blend shapes on the Steward rig for the physical strength task, AM? No, I would try to avoid that. You could do it as a test for yourself if you're feeling up to it, but I would keep it simple. Before going into blend shapes, if you haven't already, what I would recommend is starting to use bend bows. So bend bows are controls that you can find, for example, on the arms here or on the legs, which basically give you extra controls to work with. So build up to the blend shapes. Blend shapes are something we can add on top of everything else. So if you haven't done bend bows, use the bend bows first. Try to get comfortable using those. Once you're used to using those, on the Stuart rig, I believe if you select the cog, there's also body sculptor controls. Or in the case of Jules, there's the free spine controls, which these allow you to now shape the spine however you want. So kind of start building up to these more kind of, I would say the blend shapes is kind of the one that sits on top of most of these, because it is very dependent on what the base mesh is. And I would definitely recommend doing this when Jules is in high poly. So if you bring him back into low poly here, what should happen is he'll just revert back to the normal base. So low. Oh, actually, no. Hey, it actually worked. Kept the detail. Nice. Yeah, I guess it is because it's a blend shape. It's not actually affecting the geometry per se. So yeah, I would definitely recommend doing it in high poly mode though, just so you can get the extra details in there. And Circuitry Cat, thanks so much for the follow. Let's see, do you have any tutorials when going over UVs, turning them into shells? I don't believe I have any. I know I did a whole bunch of UVing a long time ago on the stream, but I don't think I ever did tutorials. That might be a good demo to do at some point. Yeah, I'll have to think about that one. It's been a while since I've done them. And I know the last time I properly did UVing, that was in Maya 2015, I think, which is a long time ago now. There's so many new tools that Maya added for UVing that I would like to get familiar with before doing a demo, because a lot of them make what I had to do before so much easier, and I would personally just like to learn them myself. It would be nice to know. Let's see, would be cool to spend a day looking at rigs. I could probably do that. Do some quick rig reviews. Actually, no. I wouldn't want to do quick rig reviews. I would like to do rig reviews, but I would want to take my time with them. The main reason for that is a lot of rigs, sometimes you will look at them and go, I don't know, it doesn't seem super good. And then you'll actually start animating with it, and it's just super intuitive and nice and fun to work with. Other times, you'll look at a rig and it's like, wow, this is really cool. And then you start to use it and it's like, the shoulders don't move quite right, the things just don't line up right. So it's not something that you can just kind of just do a quick like, oh, and 5 minutes and it's done. But it's doing some rig reviews would be really cool. I need to find the time to do that. That'd be cool. Okay. So I think with that, that's pretty much my demo on blend shapes. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully it made sense. Let's see. Yeah. So blend shapes are definitely one of those tools that I would really recommend everyone try out at some point. It is amazingly helpful, and like you saw, it's not that hard to set up. And especially nowadays that Maya has these sculpting tools built in, it's not hard to start shaping and just kind of manually grabbing things and doing something really cool. And blend shapes don't just go to the face. You could make the hands, like make knobbly hands. Like I could take these fingers and start sculpting them and make the middle joints here a little bit thinner, make the knuckles a little bit wider, get these knobbly hands in there. Maybe make the fingernails longer, things like that. You could take the body, make it thinner, thicker, whatever you want. Again, don't go too far, because at some point you're going to notice that it's not supposed to be made like that. But at least it lets you push it off of the default, which is the very important thing. Uh, so, with that, we had a bunch of shots from people, so I do want to take a look at that. John, hello, how's it going? And John, welcome to Angry Jules. And actually, I need to bring back his sneer. Really angry Jules. There you go. He looks like he's from Evil Dead with that sneer.